Well, it's interesting. I think we all thought leading into the tournament that the trade of Particle was a positive trade. It gave them a quality left-handed batsman for the top of the order to bolster their options in their top six. That failed quite dramatically, really. There was 5 games, I think, in a row that he played and failed to fire in any of those games, and if anything had a negative impact during that period of time. I think also when you look at the overseas at the top of the order for LSG, Quinton de Kock, who's one of the IPL greats, has been so consistent for many years, struggled to hit his straps as well, so that really had an impact and just added extra pressure to KL Rahul, the captain, so a lot was left on his plate. And I think when you look at also their bowling options, even before the tournament started, the express pace of Mark Wood, he pulled out. And then just on the eve, really, of the start of the IPL, David Willey pulled out. So again, they're not the only franchise that had this situation, but that's a big loss to the team, particularly when you're planning around those types of bowlers. So that put additional pressure on Mohsin Khan, who I thought bowled well, but seemed to struggle at times with a couple of fitness issues throughout the tournament. Yash Thakur also, I thought, bowled well in patches. I think the added responsibility and weight on his shoulders, I think at times he struggled to cope with, but he still ended up with a reasonably solid campaign. And then their spin option, Bishnoi, at times I think his deployment as a bowler was questionable, and Kunal Pandya also, both from a spinning aspect, I think both found themselves not being as effective as they could have been throughout the tournament. When we look at the positives of LSG, again we had this incredible little snapshot of what the future looks like with Mayank Yadav, but wow, wasn't it impressive what we saw bowling above 155 at genuine pace. He won 2 player of the matches in just those games that he did play. So that was a positive. We needed to see more of him, and we certainly hope we see more of him in the future. I think Nicholas Pooran also can look back on a tournament that was a good tournament for him, again striking at a very high rate. The captain, KL Rahul, again another tournament over 500 runs at a strike rate over 135. I think that strike rate would have been better if he had a top order that was firing at the same time. So outside of that, I think Mohsin Khan from the bowling department, was carrying a huge workload given the injuries and the form that was around him. He had a serviceable year as well. Yeah, I think KL Rahul had another good season, over 500 runs. You'd be happy if your top opening bat scores 500 plus every year. Striking over 135, I did touch on the fact that if he had form batters around him in that top order, his strike rate would be higher, which we see that trend throughout the IPL. It tends to work in partnerships. If you are taking down the opposition in power play overs, it tends to work hand in glove if you both are working at the same time. When we look at KL Rahul's captaincy, I think he had a reasonably consistent year. It's always challenging from a captain's point of view when you have inconsistent performance. When you look at their fielding just to start with, a number of catches were dropped. I listened to the interview the coach Justin Langer gave at the end of their very last game against Mumbai Indians. He reflected on their fielding and the number of catches they dropped and key catches they dropped, which really impacted the outcome of a lot of their results. When it comes to the bowling, I think he didn't have a bowling unit that was in form. There was good little patches of form from Mohsin Khan. Bishnoi, again, showed some promise from time to time. But apart from that, they never really settled with their overseas combination with the ball. And I think that sort of form and inconsistency really reflected on a lot of their outcomes. Yeah, looking at their season and their time that they've been in the IPL, this is their 3rd year. They've made 2 playoffs in the first 2 years, just missed out this year. It was only really 1 win away from qualifying, so it wasn't a disastrous season for them. Looking ahead, they've got certainly enough players within that squad that they would certainly like to retain. You look at their bowlers first. Mayank Yadav is a definite yes. Bishnoi is a definite yes. Kunal Pandya would be a definite yes. On their batting front, KL Rahul, the captain, obviously yes. And Mohsin Khan, a definite yes. And Nicholas Pooran would be an absolute, a resounding yes. So there's enough there, and I'm sure that they may even dig a little bit deeper depending on what the retention rules are to what they'd like to take forward into 2025.